This is the city of Springfield, which I created to answer two questions. One, does the game run any better with a new city compared to a city that was started on launch day? And two, does creating a city on a different map with a different theme make the game look and feel any different? In this video I will attempt to answer those questions and give my final thoughts on the current state of the game. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel where I'm playing Cities Skylines 2, so you don't have to. I've already made a number of Cities 2 videos talking about my experience of the game over the last few months. I've tried to be honest and keep an open mind, especially as a former game developer who knows what it can be like behind the scenes. However, like a lot of people, I can't help but feel disappointed by the game for reasons that I've already covered and will get into more later. On the other hand, I do have to say up top that despite the frustrations, I've actually enjoyed building this city in particular. I'll be taking my time to detail it and make the city look nice, or at least as nice as I can with the tools and assets currently available. And it has the same therapeutic effect as playing Cities 1, albeit interrupted by occasional frustrations, and there you see the problem. I'm trying to be positive and complimentary, but I can't help but point out the flaws in the experience that are currently holding it back. Anyway, addressing those questions. First, does the city perform better than the one I started on launch day before all of the new patches came out? This is a hard one to answer definitively, but I feel like it does. I've unlocked the thriving metropolis milestone and have a population of over 85,000 citizens, and I'm getting over 30 FPS most of the time, sometimes 50 FPS or higher depending on what's on screen. This is definitely better than I was getting on my other admittedly larger city, which struggles to hit 30 FPS most of the time. I also had less trouble getting the city to make a profit in the early stages and haven't had the same problems with high density demand that I was getting in the other city either. It does help that after a lot of trial and error I finally found a cocktail of graphics settings that seem to work for me, plus I have the experience from building my first city and familiarising myself with the new systems in Cities 2, so all of that might be helping, but it's also possible that this new city just works better than the old one. As for the second question, does the city look and feel any different on a different map and with a North American theme instead of a European one? That is a much easier question to answer, and the short answer is no, not really. I didn't choose a Southern Hemisphere map, so the seasons aren't inverted, but the climate is allegedly different. All I can say for certain is that there certainly seems to be less rain on this new map, which makes sense as the other map was inspired by Scotland. However, I would have expected the lighting to be different based on the latitude and longitude of the map, or for the day-night cycle to be different. Now, I generally don't play with the day-night cycle on, as it's impossible to see what you're doing in the dark most of the time, but I have turned it on out of curiosity and to make some of the shots that you're looking at in this video. And it doesn't seem to make a huge difference to the visuals, particularly when compared to all the lighting effects that were added to Cities 1. So I can't say the environment makes a huge difference, but what about the buildings? Again, this is a tricky one. All of the zoned buildings, residential, commercial, industrial and office, have different styles depending on the theme. But look at this comparison between a low density area in Brecon, my European city, and this area of Springfield, a North American city. Yes, the buildings are different close up, but do they stand out from a distance? What about these downtown high population areas? One big problem here is that you don't get different versions of the service buildings, the schools, hospitals, train stations. They're all the same. All these buildings are massive and dominate the landscape, and I just guess I would expect that a European map would have different styles for these buildings too. You also have to place a lot of primary schools in the city, and it's just a bummer that they all look the same. Cities 1 had different designs of buildings with different capacities. They added buildings with randomised features and variations that you could switch between yourself, and all of that just makes it even more frustrating that this kind of customisation is completely missing from Cities 2. Now, I'm sure this can be improved over time, as more variations will get added by the developers, content packs will be released and the community assets stores will eventually become available, but for now I can't say it makes that much of a difference. And that's a familiar theme. Things just don't seem to impact the game the way they should. Another difference in this city is that I had natural disasters enabled, and most of the time I get warned about a forest fire and it turns out to be a single tree burning 10 miles away from the nearest building. Or I'll turn around and see that a city block has been demolished due to weather damage, but I didn't know it was happening. Now, I don't expect advanced warning without placing the proper buildings, but you think the radio station would cover the event once it actually starts, and that's not the only reason I don't like the radio station, more on that in a minute. The thing is, even when these disasters do hit the city, they're short-lived, cause minimal damage, and everything returns to normal pretty quickly. It should not be possible to not even notice that these things have happened. I would much rather that they hadn't included things like road accidents, natural disasters in the base game, and they'd put their time and effort into optimization, bug fixing, and making sure the features that were present at launch actually worked. Back to the subject of the radio station, this is something I realise I haven't really discussed yet, despite having some quite strong feelings about it. First, I love the music. The composers and sound designers would appear to be the only ones who actually had the time and resources to do their jobs properly on this game. However, it's annoying that you can't just listen to the music on Second Moon without the announcements. These announcements are supposed to let you know what's happening in the city, but they regularly talk about housing shortages and other events that don't seem to be relevant to what's actually going on in the game. And then there are various attempts at humour that aren't especially funny the first time you hear them and do not improve with repetition. It's just another area where effort feels wasted at the expense of other more important features. And then there's the lingering issue of performance. As I showed in my last video, I've just upgraded to a pretty high-spec PC, and while there were some improvements, the game still doesn't run very well for me. It just doesn't make sense to produce a game that only a small number of people are able to play properly, and it will need significant optimization if it's ever going to run on consoles. If no one can play it, no one will buy it, and, well, let's just say Colossal Order might not have much time to turn this thing around. If it was an early access game, we'd probably been fairly happy with it, but as a full-price, allegedly complete release, it's hard to describe it as anything other than a disappointment. Given the performance issues, bugs and lack of features available in the game right now, it's hard to recommend. Now, as a former game developer, I appreciate how difficult it must have been. It seems like no one can release a complete and unbroken game on day one these days, but that doesn't stop it being disappointing. The game that we were given just simply wasn't ready for release, and arguably still isn't 5 months later. I think a lot of the problems come down to how Colossal Order has handled the problem too. The game is mired in bugs and performance problems, but at time of writing there hasn't been a patch since January 31st, that's over 6 weeks. Again, from experience I know that patches require a lot of effort to roll out, but given the state of the game and the damage to Colossal Order's reputation, maybe putting in some effort would have been a good idea at this stage. Editor Mike here. As I am editing the video, they have finally released some new content alongside a patch that allegedly improves performance and adds in a beta version of the new modding tools, but it's underwhelming and currently doesn't actually seem to be working properly. Anyway, the response to the criticism hasn't exactly been perfect either. I understand and empathise with the pressure that they will have been under from the soulless automatons that run the games industry to get the game out and start making money. I also realise that it would have been a near insurmountable challenge to live up to the hype and expectations that the community had after the success of the first City Skylines, but they haven't handled it with as much humility and grace as I would have hoped. There's been a lot of talk about toxicity in the community, and I would challenge how true that statement is. Yes, there have been ignorant arseholes who don't understand game development bashing out hateful comments on their Cheeto dust encrusted keyboards. Just look below this video and you'll probably see at least one such comment, assuming I haven't got round to deleting it yet, even though I had nothing to do with the game's development. But there's also an element that the community is understandably disappointed and frustrated. We paid full price for what was supposed to be a finished game and we got a buggy mess with unfinished features that ran poorly on everyone's machine. Of course people are going to be angry if you give them a poor quality product, particularly if you then turn around and tell them, well, if you don't like it, it's not for you. They must have known the state the game was in. They must have had some feedback from Biffer, City Planner and the other people who got to play it early. It should have been obvious the community wasn't going to be happy with the game we were given, and they should have been better prepared for the backlash, or should have delayed the game to give them a chance to actually finish it before it was released. But the past is the past. We can't change what has happened, and we must now look to the future. And they seem to be being fairly honest and transparent about the current state of affairs and their plans, even if they're not the plans that we would have wanted. To be fair, they did warn us there would be performance issues before launch that they would have to fix, and at the time I admired them for that honesty. Still, it's easy to feel betrayed. I guess I should have known that the reality would be worse than they were prepared to admit. As I've said, I do enjoy playing the game, and there's a lot to like among the new features. I can see that there is the foundation of a great game here, but it needs a lot of work to get it up to the quality we have come to expect from this company. I hope they can turn it around, I really do. I don't want them to become the latest studio to join the ranks of BioWare, Blizzard, CD Projekt Red and most recently Rocksteady, who became victims of their own success and ambition and lost the respect of their fans. Or worse, like so many other great game studios that no longer exist. For now, I have a huge backlog of games I've picked up in various Steam sales over the years, and I just don't feel like putting off so many potentially great games to play Cities 2 in its current state. I hope Colossal Order are around long enough to work their magic and change our minds, but I can't recommend the game right now, and despite my love for Cities 1, I am not sticking around. That said, it's not the end of the channel. I am doing my own year of YouTube, aiming to create monthly videos. The plan was to create more City Skylines 2 content, but that's kind of gone out the window. But please subscribe for more gaming, writing, 3D modelling and other nerdy stuff coming in the next few months. Thank you very much for watching, take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.